Here's our question 5, and it is 6 marks. So far, what we notice is that most of these questions are for 6 marks, which is quite good because once you get the hang of it, you realize that it's quite simple for you to total this question. Okay, let's do this. We're starting off by focusing on sine 180 minus x. We're aware 180 minus lies in the second quadrant where sine is positive. So that becomes positive sine x. Next to that, we've got this minus 2. I'm just going to bring it down as is. And we're now looking at cos 90 minus x. 90 minus lies in the first quadrant where all trig ratios are positive. However, 90 minus changes cos into sine. So that becomes negative 2 sine x. And remember, this negative 2 is just from the question itself. That is being multiplied by this cos x, so we're just going to write it here as is. We cannot do anything with that at the moment. Now moving on to the denominator. We've got this 2 in front. Let's bring that down as is. There we have it. And now we're focusing on cos squared 360 plus x. Remember that whenever you have the square, it tells you that that answer is going to be squared. So let me just show you this separately first. So this is what we have, right? Cos squared 360 plus. Now remember, 360 plus lies in the fourth quadrant. Actually, the first quadrant, sorry. 360 plus lies in the first quadrant where all trig ratios are positive. So we know that it's going to give us a positive answer, right? So that should be positive cos x. Now remember, when there's a square, it tells you that whatever answer you have from this reduction formula, that is squared. So cos x being squared is going to give you cos squared x. So we don't really show this, the in-between steps, right? We just show the answer of that reduction formula. So here we have 2 cos squared x. Now focusing on the next part, you notice that there's this minus, which is part of the question. So let's bring that down. Next to that, we've got cos negative x. Cos of a negative angle is just positive cos of that angle. So there we have it, right? And just remember that this minus in front is just from the question. We just brought that down. Now at this point, we notice that there's something common in both terms in our numerator. Both of them contain sine x. And also, something common in our denominator in both terms, both of them contain cos x. So, let's factorize. When we take out sine x from the first term, we're left with 1. From the second term, we have minus 2 cos x. Now, moving on to the denominator, cos x is common, so let's take that out. In the first term, you are left with 2 cos x. Reason being is because it was actually cos squared x, right? So we just pulled out 1 of it. In your second term, you're left with minus 1. Now, normally when we factorize, we are looking for things to be the same so that they can cancel out. And we notice that these brackets look very similar. However, the terms are swapped around and they actually have the opposite sign. So how can we fix this? We can either change the numerator bracket to look like the denominator or change the denominator bracket to look like the numerator. I think what I'll actually do here is change the numerator. And this is also something that I just want to show you separately first, right, as to how it works and why it works that way. So this is what we had. And what I'm going to do is I'm first going to swap these two terms around. So as is, they have the opposite signs of what we need. We don't want this negative in front, and we actually need the 1 to be negative. How we can fix this is we can take out this negative as a common factor, which will actually go in front of the sine x. Doing so, this is what we end up with. We now have negative sine x. So remember, the negative here is gone, right? This is positive 2 cos x. And obviously, when you're taking out a negative, this positive 1 needs to become negative 1. Because if you multiply back, negative times a negative will end up giving you a positive. So essentially this is what we need, right? So this is what I'm going to replace the numerator with. There it is. And by doing so, you notice that those two brackets are exactly the same, so they can cancel out. What we now left with is negative, and here we notice we've got sine over cos, which is tan. So that's negative tan x as our final answer. So let's have a look at where your marks were allocated. The first step had 4 marks allocated to it, 1 for each reduction formula that you used, and 1 for applying the negative angle with cos. In the next step, there was 1 mark allocated to factorizing your numerator and denominator, and your final mark allocated to your final answer.